The Centauri Research Complex was the crown jewel of galactic scientific achievement, a sprawling facility of crystalline spires and quantum-locked laboratories that housed the most advanced technology in known space. Today, it was also the site of what might become the worst disaster in Council history. The containment field is failing, announced Chief Engineer ZYX, 427, their bioluminescent tentacles flashing urgent patterns of distress. The quantum core's degradation has accelerated beyond our projections. The facility's central control room buzzed with activity as various alien species moved in carefully choreographed chaos. Holographic displays showed a spiraling mass of energy at the heart of the complex, its normally stable blue glow now shot through with angry red fractures. Ambassador Thela of the Arcturian Confederation lowered her sensor stalks in dismay. How long until critical failure? For hours, 17 minutes, replied ZYX, 427. Unless we can stabilize the core's quantum matrix. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A quantum core collapse wouldn't just destroy the facility, it would tear a hole in space-time large enough to swallow the entire system. Sarah Chen watched from her maintenance station, absently twirling a standard-issue multi-tool between her fingers. As the only human engineer in the facility, she was used to being overlooked. The complex's advanced systems were supposedly beyond Earth's technological understanding, which was why she was assigned to simple maintenance tasks. But Sarah had spent 6 months studying the facility's systems during her repair rounds. More importantly, she'd spent years before that working on Earth's experimental fusion reactors. Dealing with catastrophic failures was practically in her job description. We need to notify the Council, declared Ambassador Thela. Perhaps the Quantum Authority can send. The Authority's nearest response team is 3 days out, interrupted ZYX, 427. We don't have that kind of time. Sarah cleared her throat. I might have an idea. A dozen alien eyes turned toward her with expressions ranging from surprise to barely concealed disdain. Engineer Chin, Ambassador Thela said carefully, while we appreciate your dedication, this is far beyond Earth's technological capability. The quantum matrix operates on principles your species hasn't even discovered yet. Sarah stood up. With all due respect, Ambassador, I've been maintaining the secondary cooling systems for the past 6 months. The quantum matrix might be beyond us, but containment? That's just about managing energy flow and heat distribution. And humans? We've been jerry-rigging solutions to impossible problems since we figured out how to make fire. Jerry-rigging? ZYX 427's tentacles twisted in confusion. Making things work with whatever's available, Sarah explained. Look, I've studied the facility schematics. The problem isn't the quantum matrix itself. It's the con. Making things work with whatever's available, Sarah explained. Look, I've studied the facility schematics. The problem isn't the quantum matrix itself, it's the containment field harmonics. They're out of sync because the system was designed to be perfect with no redundancies. But sometimes you need a backup for your backup. Ambassador Thela's sensor stalks twitched. And you believe you can provide this backup? Sarah pulled up a holographic display of her own, quickly sketching out a diagram. The maintenance tunnels run parallel to the main power conduits. If we reroute the emergency power through them and set up a resonance cascade using the old copper wiring. Copper, someone scoffed. That's practically Stone Age technology. Exactly, Sarah grinned. Sometimes the old ways work best. Copper's conductive properties might be basic, but they're reliable. More importantly, they're predictable. We can use that to create a secondary containment field that's crude but effective, like using a lead box to contain radiation. It won't fix the quantum matrix, but it'll buy us time for the Authority to arrive. The room erupted in arguments. Half the engineers were dismissing the idea outright, while others were beginning to look thoughtful. Sarah noticed ZYX 427 running calculations, their tentacles moving in complex patterns. It could work, they finally announced. The principles are sound, if horrifyingly primitive. But the maintenance tunnels are incredibly dangerous when the core is unstable. The radiation levels alone. Then I'll go, Sarah said firmly. Humans are surprisingly radiation resistant compared to most species. Plus, I know those tunnels better than anyone. I've been crawling through them for months. Ambassador Thiela's sensor stalks swayed in agitation. This is highly irregular. The council protocols clearly state, a violent tremor shook the facility, and the holographic displays flickered ominously. The quantum core's containment field had dropped another 12%. Sarah grabbed her toolkit. Look, we can either stand here debating protocols, or we can try something that might actually work. Your choice, but that core isn't going to wait for a committee decision. There was another tremor, stronger this time. Warning klaxons began to sound throughout the facility. Ambassador Thiela's sensor stalks drooped in resignation. Very well, Engineer Chen. You have authorization to proceed. But if this fails... It won't, Sarah said, already heading for the door. Because failure isn't an option we can afford right now. Sometimes you have to ignore the rulebook and just get things done. And that's something humans excel at. As she stepped into the corridor, Sarah heard ZYX 427 ask quietly, is this why humans have advanced so quickly? This willingness to ignore established procedures. No, Sarah called back with a grin. We advance quickly because when everything's going wrong and all the proper solutions have failed, someone always steps up and says, fine, I'll handle it. And then we do. The maintenance tunnel entrance loomed before her, dark and uninviting. Sarah checked her radiation meter, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. She had work to do, and only 4 hours to do it. After all, it wasn't every day you got to save a solar system with copper wire and human stubbornness. The maintenance tunnel thrummed with dangerous energy as Sarah crawled through its narrow confines. Her radiation meter clicked steadily, the sound increasing with each meter she advanced toward the quantum core. The metal walls around her felt alive, vibrating with barely contained power. Engineer Chen, your radiation exposure is approaching critical levels. ZYX 427's voice crackled through her communicator. Council safety protocols require immediate evacuation at these readings. Sarah paused to wipe sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of grime. Good thing I'm not paying attention to those protocols then. How's the containment field holding? Down to 37%. The degradation is accelerating. Of course it is, Sarah muttered, pulling her toolkit closer. Because nothing's ever simple. She reached a junction where several power conduits intersected. The space was tight, barely large enough for her to turn around. Above her head, the primary power lines pulsed with ethereal light, their quantum-grade insulation struggling to contain the chaotic energy within. All right, Sarah announced, I'm at Junction 7. Time to do something incredibly stupid but potentially brilliant. Ambassador Thiela's voice cut in. Engineer Chen, the Council's emergency response protocol specifically forbids unauthorized modifications to primary power systems. With all due respect, Ambassador, Sarah grunted as she pried open an access panel, we're way past worrying about warranties and regulations. She pulled out a coil of copper wire from her toolkit, old-school Earth technology that the facility's automated systems didn't even recognize as technology. The quantum harmonics are destabilizing, someone shouted over the comm, field strength at 33%. Sarah worked faster, stripping wire ends with practiced efficiency. Quick physics lesson. Sometimes the most elegant solution isn't the best solution. Sometimes you need something crude but effective. She began weaving the copper wire through the junction's support structure, creating an improvised lattice. It wasn't pretty, but it didn't need to be. It just needed to work. What exactly are you doing? ZYX 427 asked, their voice mixing curiosity with horror. Creating a resonance buffer using copper's natural conductivity properties, Sarah explained, connecting more wires. Think of it like putting a lightning rod next to a power station. We're giving the excess energy somewhere to go besides the containment field. Another tremor shook the tunnel. Warning lights flashed red, and Sarah's radiation meter screamed in protest. She ignored both. That's not how quantum energy works, protested one of the alien engineers. The theoretical models clearly show. Theory's great until everything's exploding, Sarah interrupted. Then you work with what you've got. And right now, what we've got is copper wire, human ingenuity, and about 3 hours before this whole place tears itself apart. She finished the lattice and moved to the next junction. The radiation levels were higher here, making her skin tingle unpleasantly. She'd probably exceed her yearly radiation exposure limit by the time this was done, but that was a problem for future Sarah. Field strength at 29%. Came another update. We're detecting unusual energy patterns in the maintenance tunnels. Good. Sarah called back, starting another copper lattice. That means it's working. The copper's channeling some of the excess energy away from the main containment field. Ambassador Thiela's voice was strained. This goes against every safety regulation in the Council's handbook. You know what else goes against regulations? Sarah asked, grimacing as she burned her finger on an overheated conduit. A quantum core explosion. Sometimes you have to break the rules to prevent something worse. She continued working, junction by junction, creating a web of copper wire throughout the maintenance tunnel system. It was like building a primitive nervous system around the facility's quantum heart, providing new pathways for the chaotic energy to follow. Engineer Chin, ZYX 427 announced after what felt like hours, the field degradation is slowing. How is this possible? This solution shouldn't work according to any known physical principles. Sarah smiled despite her exhaustion. That's the thing about humans, ZYX. We have a bad habit of doing things that shouldn't be possible. Now, who's ready for Phase 2? There's a Phase 2? Ambassador Thiela asked weakly. Of course there is, Sarah replied, pulling more equipment from her toolkit. Because the copper lattice is just buying us time. Next, we're going to do something really unconventional. She held up what looked like a primitive Earth circuit board, modified with parts salvaged from her own tablet computer. Who's ready to learn about human-style practical engineering? The silence from the control room was deafening. Sarah grinned and got back to work. Sometimes the best way to advance science wasn't through careful theoretical models, it was through desperate innovation and the stubborn refusal to accept failure as an option. After all, that's how humanity had made it to the stars in the first place. Sarah's hands moved swiftly as she connected her makeshift circuit board to the copper lattice network. The maintenance tunnel's temperature had risen another 10 degrees, and her radiation meter had given up entirely, displaying only an ominous row of error messages. All right, she announced, wiping sweat from her eyes. Time for some Earth magic. Magic is not a scientifically accepted principle, one of the alien engineers protested weakly. Figure of speech, Sarah replied, typing commands into her modified tablet. Though what I'm about to do might look like magic to your advanced systems. The circuit board was a mess of Earth components and salvaged alien tech, the kind of hybrid creation that would make any respectable council engineer faint. She'd been working on it in secret during her maintenance shifts, studying how the quantum systems interacted with more primitive technology. Field strength holding at 27%, ZYX 427 reported. But the quantum matrix is showing signs of cascade failure. Whatever you're planning, Engineer Chin, do it quickly. Sarah connected the final wire. Has anyone ever told you about Earth's power grid? Your planetary electrical distribution system? Ambassador Thiela asked. It's quite primitive, isn't it? Primitive but resilient, Sarah corrected. See, we learned something important during our technological development. Complex systems fail in complex ways, but simple systems fail in predictable ways. And predictable problems are easier to fix. She activated her circuit board. It hummed to life, LEDs blinking in a steady pattern. The quantum core is failing because its containment systems are too perfect. They're designed to handle normal operations flawlessly, but they can't adapt to unexpected problems. My copper lattice created a pressure release, but now we need to stabilize the flow. And how exactly do you plan to do that with prehistoric Earth technology? Someone asked skeptically. Sarah grinned. By introducing controlled chaos. Her circuit board began pulsing, sending irregular electrical signals through the copper network. The quantum field monitors in the control room erupted with warnings. What are you doing? Ambassador Thiela cried. The energy patterns are becoming completely erratic. That's the point, Sarah explained, adjusting settings on her tablet. Your systems are trying to maintain perfect quantum harmony, but that's impossible right now. Instead, we're going to embrace the chaos and guide it. Think of it like surfing a wave instead of trying to stop it. Surfing. ZYX 427's tentacles twisted in confusion. Is this another Earth reference? It's about working with the forces you can't control, Sarah said, watching her readings carefully. The quantum core is destabilized? Fine. Let's use that instability. My circuit board is introducing random but controlled fluctuations in the copper network. The quantum energy is being drawn to these fluctuations, following them like lightning follows the path of least resistance. The facility shuddered, but this time it felt different. Less violent, more like a machine settling into a new rhythm. Impossible, whispered one of the alien engineers. The quantum readings, they're stabilizing. But how? This violates at least 7 fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. Sarah laughed. Welcome to human engineering, where the laws are more like guidelines. Sometimes you have to break a few rules to make things work. The control room erupted in amazed chatter as the quantum core's containment field began to strengthen. Sarah's jury-rigged system was actually working, using principles that shouldn't work according to any advanced alien theory. I don't understand, Ambassador Thela admitted. Your solution is crude, primitive. It goes against everything we know about quantum engineering. Yet it's succeeding where our most advanced systems failed. How is this possible? Sarah carefully secured her circuit board, ensuring it would continue functioning. Because sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best solution. Humans learned that the hard way. We didn't have the luxury of perfect technology during our development. We had to make do with what we had, fix things on the fly, think outside the box. It made us adaptable. She began crawling back through the maintenance tunnel, her work finally done. Your systems are designed to be perfect, but reality isn't perfect. Sometimes you need a solution that's flexible, unpredictable, even a little bit messy. Something that can adapt and overcome, just like humans have always done. The authority representatives will not be pleased, Ambassador Thela noted. Your modifications violate dozens of safety protocols. But they work, Sarah pointed out. And sometimes that's all that matters. The core is stable, the facility is saved, and we did it without waiting for official approval or following proper procedures. As she emerged from the maintenance tunnel, covered in grime and slightly radioactive but triumphant, Sarah saw the control room staff staring at her with new expressions, respect mixed with bewilderment, as if they were seeing humans in a completely new light. You know, ZIX 427 said thoughtfully, their tentacles moving in complex patterns. Perhaps we have been too dismissive of Earth's technological approaches. Your methods may be unorthodox, but they are effective. Sarah smiled, pulling out her maintenance checklist. That's humans for you. We might not have the most advanced technology, but give us a problem and some spare parts, and we'll find a way to make it work. She made a note in her log, quantum core stabilized. Maintenance tunnels slightly radioactive. Probably should update the safety protocols, eventually. After all, sometimes the best solutions came from breaking a few rules and trusting in human ingenuity. News travels fast in the galactic community, especially when it involves the impossible. Within days of the Centauri Research Complex incident, Sarah found herself at the center of an interstellar controversy. The Quantum Authority representatives have arrived, ZYX 427 announced, their tentacles rippling with nervous energy. They're not happy. Sarah looked up from her maintenance console, where she'd been monitoring her improvised containment system. Are they ever? The authority delegation swept into the control room like a storm of metallic robes and barely contained outrage. Their leader, High Inspector Vex, fixed Sarah with all 3 of his eyes. Engineer Chin, he said, voice dripping with disdain, would you care to explain why there is primitive Earth technology integrated into one of the most advanced quantum research facilities in the galaxy? Because it works, Sarah replied simply, pulling up the facility's status displays. Core stability at 97%, energy fluctuations within normal parameters, and no signs of quantum degradation. All thanks to some copper wire and human ingenuity. This is unacceptable, Vex declared. Your modifications violate every safety standard the authority has established. The copper network must be removed immediately. Actually, ZYX 427 interjected, their bioluminescence pulsing with unexpected confidence. We've been studying Engineer Chen's solution. The principles involved, while unorthodox, are remarkably effective. We've even begun theoretical work on incorporating similar concepts into our standard containment protocols. The authority delegation looked horrified. You can't be serious, one of them sputtered. This is prehistoric technology. Technology that saved this facility and everyone in it, Ambassador Thela pointed out, her sensor stalks swaying thoughtfully. Perhaps it's time we reconsidered our definition of advancement. Sarah's communicator chimed. She checked it and raised an eyebrow. Speaking of advancement, you might want to hold off on removing anything. We just got an emergency request from the Proxima Research Station. They're experiencing similar quantum stability issues. Impossible, Vex declared. Their systems are even more advanced than. Another chime interrupted him. Then another. And another. Make that request from Proxima, Sirius Base, and the Arcturus Complex, Sarah updated, scanning the messages. All reporting quantum containment problems. All requesting. She smiled, human assistance. The control room erupted in chaos. Authority representatives argued with facility administrators while technical staff huddled around displays, examining the incoming data. This cannot be coincidence, Vex insisted, his third eye twitching. These facilities represent the pinnacle of galactic engineering. They cannot all be failing simultaneously. Sarah had already pulled up her toolkit. You're right. It's not a coincidence. And that's the real problem we should be focusing on. She projected a galactic map, highlighting the affected facilities. Look at the pattern. These aren't random failures. Someone or something is targeting our most advanced research centers. The question is why? Preposterous, Vex scoffed. Our security systems are impenetrable. No one could. Just like our containment systems were perfect? Sarah interrupted. Sometimes the most sophisticated systems are the most vulnerable, precisely because everyone thinks they're invulnerable. Ambassador Thela's sensor stalks drooped in realization. You believe these failures are deliberate? I know they are, Sarah replied, pulling up more data. Look at the quantum signatures. They're too similar to be natural degradation. Someone's found a way to exploit a fundamental flaw in the Council's standardized systems. But why? ZIX 427 asked, their tentacles twisting in agitation. Sarah packed her tools, mind already racing through possibilities. That's what we need to find out. But first, we need to stop these facilities from melting down. And for that, she grinned, holding up a coil of copper wire, you're going to need more humans who are good at improvising. Vex looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. You're suggesting we deploy human engineers to our most sensitive research facilities? With their primitive methods and disregard for proper procedures? No, Sarah corrected, heading for the door. I'm suggesting you let us save them. Because right now, those primitive methods are the only thing standing between the galaxy and a chain of quantum disasters. She paused at the threshold. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't with the most advanced technology. Sometimes you need people who are used to working with whatever they have, who can think outside the box because they never really accepted the box in the first place. The Council will never approve this, Vex protested weakly. Sarah's smile turned predatory. Then it's a good thing we humans have a long history of doing what needs to be done, approval or not. Now, who's ready to break some more safety protocols? Behind her, she heard ZYX 427 mutter, I'm beginning to understand why humans advanced so quickly. They're all insane. Not insane, Sarah called back. Just stubborn enough to make the impossible work. She stepped into the corridor, already planning her next series of impossible solutions. After all, someone had to save the galaxy. Might as well be the species everyone had underestimated. The Arcturus Complex's central laboratory looked like a war zone. Sarah stood amid a tangle of copper wiring and jury-rigged circuit boards, watching as another human engineer installed an improvised containment system. In the 3 weeks since the first incident, she'd seen this scene repeated across 6 different facilities. Status report, she called out, checking readings on her modified tablet. Course stabilized, replied Dr. James Rodriguez. wiping grease from his hands. Though I found something interesting in the quantum signature analysis. You're going to want to see this. Sarah walked over, stepping carefully around the copper lattice network that now crisscrossed the facility's maintenance sections. The authority representatives had stopped protesting the primitive modifications after the third successful stabilization. James pulled up a holographic display. Look at these patterns. They're not just similar to the other failures, they're identical. Down to the quantum level. That's impossible, Sarah muttered, but she was already seeing it. Quantum events don't replicate with this kind of precision. Unless they're programmed to, James finished. This isn't just sabotage. It's a virus. A quantum virus. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. But that would mean access to the highest levels of council security, a new voice interrupted. Both humans turned to see Ambassador Thela entering the lab, her sensor stalks drooping with exhaustion. We've confirmed similar findings at all affected facilities. How many now? Sarah asked. 12, Thela replied. All major research centers. The council is concerned. Concerned enough to finally listen? Sarah challenged. She'd been trying to warn them for weeks that these weren't isolated incidents. Thela's sensor stalks twisted in what Sarah had learned was the equivalent of a grimace. High Inspector Vex is convening an emergency session. Your presence has been requested. My presence or my primitive solutions? Both, Thela admitted. Though I should warn you, not everyone is pleased with how much we've come to rely on human methods. Sarah snorted. They can be displeased all they want. Results speak for themselves. She gathered her tools and data cores, mind already working on the bigger picture. A quantum virus sophisticated enough to bypass council security but designed to be countered by simple Earth technology? Something wasn't adding up. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater of crystalline architecture and floating platforms. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered seating, their murmured conversations creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses. High Inspector Vex stood at the central podium, all three eyes fixed on Sarah as she entered. Engineer Chen, perhaps you'd care to explain why 12 of our most advanced facilities now depend on copper wire and salvaged Earth components to function. Because someone wanted them to, Sarah replied, connecting her tablet to the chamber's holographic systems. This isn't random sabotage. It's too precise, too calculated. These failures were designed to force us to implement exactly the kind of solutions we've been using. The chamber erupted in confused discussion. Sarah projected her findings, showing the identical quantum signatures across all affected facilities. Think about it, she continued. These attacks targeted our most advanced systems, but they're surprisingly easy to counter with basic technology. Why? Because someone wanted to prove a point. What point? Vex demanded. That the Council's approach to technological advancement is fundamentally flawed, a new voice announced. Sarah turned to see a figure step out of the shadows, a council member she'd never seen before, their form shrouded in ceremonial robes. Counselor Zen, Vex breathed, his third eye widening in shock. The figure lowered their hood, revealing an ancient member of a species Sarah didn't recognize. For centuries, we've pursued perfection in our technology. Flawless systems, perfect harmonies, absolute control. But in doing so, we've made ourselves vulnerable. You? Sarah asked, realization dawning. You created the virus? Zen inclined their head. Unnecessary demonstration. Our obsession with technological perfection has become our greatest weakness. We've forgotten the value of adaptability, of imperfection, of human ingenuity. The chamber descended into chaos as the implications sank in. One of their own had deliberately sabotaged their most advanced facilities to prove a point about their technological philosophy. Sarah looked at her tablet, at the elegant virus that had been designed to be defeated by primitive solutions. You wanted us to succeed, she said quietly. You wanted to show them that sometimes the best answer isn't the most advanced one. The galaxy is changing, Zen replied. We face threats we cannot predict or control. We need solutions that can adapt, improvise, overcome. We need the human approach, Sarah finished, understanding at last. This hadn't just been about saving facilities. It had been about saving the Council from itself. Now she just had to convince them of that before they threw both her and Zen out an airlock. After all, changing minds was often harder than saving facilities. But then again, humans had always enjoyed a challenge. The council chamber had descended into the kind of chaos that only bureaucrats could create. Accusations flew across the room in dozens of languages while Counselor Zen stood calmly at the center of the storm. "This is treason," High Inspector Vex declared, his third eye practically bulging. "You deliberately compromised our most advanced facilities." "I exposed a critical flaw in our thinking," Zen corrected. "One that could have destroyed us if discovered by our enemies instead of ourselves." Sarah watched the debate unfold, her mind racing. She'd seen this pattern before, not in technology, but in human history. Organizations so convinced of their superiority that they couldn't see their own vulnerabilities until it was too late. "If I may," she spoke up, her voice cutting through the chaos. The chamber fell silent, dozens of alien eyes turning to focus on her. "I think you're all missing the bigger picture here." She stepped forward, pulling up displays of her copper lattice networks. "These solutions aren't just about fixing quantum cores. They're about proving that there's more than one way to solve a problem. The Council's methods have served us for millennia," one of the elder members protested. "And they've worked great," Sarah agreed, "until they didn't. That's the problem with perfect systems. They're perfectly vulnerable to anyone who finds their flaws. But imperfect systems?" She grinned. "They're adaptable. Resilient. Like humanity." Ambassador Thiela's sensor stalk swayed thoughtfully. "You're suggesting we should intentionally make our technology less advanced?" "I'm suggesting we make it more flexible," Sarah corrected. "Look at Earth's history. We've faced disasters, wars, technological collapses. But we always survived because we learned to work with whatever we had. Sometimes that meant using cutting-edge technology, sometimes it meant falling back on basics." She projected a new image, a hybrid design combining Council quantum technology with Earth-style redundancies. "Imagine combining your advanced systems with our practical approaches. Not just copper wire and circuit boards, but a whole new philosophy of engineering." "Unprecedented," someone muttered, but others were leaning forward, studying the designs with interest. Counselor Zen stepped forward. "This is exactly what I sought to demonstrate. Our pursuit of perfection has left us rigid, inflexible. We need to evolve." "By devolving our technology?" Vex asked incredulously. "By making it stronger," Sarah insisted. "Think about it. 12 facilities, all running on hybrid systems that combine quantum engineering with human innovation. They're more stable now than they ever were with pure Council tech. That's not a coincidence." She turned to address the entire chamber. "Humans don't just solve problems, we learn from them. Every failure teaches us something new. Every improvised solution becomes part of our toolkit. We don't just fix things, we make them better." The chamber buzzed with discussion. Sarah could see the shift happening, skepticism giving way to curiosity, outrage turning to consideration. Perhaps, Ambassador Thiela suggested carefully, it's time to establish a new division within the Council. One focused on integrating human engineering principles with our advanced technology. "A waste of resources," Vex protested, but his opposition sounded weaker now. "Is it?" Sarah challenged. "Because right now, your most advanced facilities are running on human innovations. Imagine what we could do if we actually worked together instead of just improvising in emergencies." Counselor Zen's ancient features curved into what might have been a smile. "Engineer Chen has proven her point more effectively than my demonstration ever could. The future of galactic technology lies not in perfection, but in adaptation. In combining the best of all approaches." The Council deliberated for hours, but in the end, the evidence was undeniable. A new division was established, the Advanced Systems Integration and Emergency Response Unit, with Sarah as its first director. As she left the chamber, ZYX 427 fell into step beside her, their tentacles moving in amused patterns. "So, humans will now officially be in charge of fixing the galaxy's problems?" Sarah laughed. "Not fixing, improving. There's a difference." "And the copper wire?" "Oh, that stays," she grinned. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Besides, she pulled out her tablet, already filled with new project requests. We're just getting started. Because that was the thing about humans. Give them an impossible problem, and they wouldn't just solve it. They'd redesign it, rebuild it, and make sure it never happened again. Not with perfect technology, but with the perfect combination of innovation, adaptation, and good old-fashioned human stubbornness. After all, when humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," they don't just mean right now. They mean forever. And the galaxy was about to learn just how far human ingenuity could take them. The end.